By now, you should have watched the first two videos that I've posted regarding solving simultaneous equations using either elimination method or substitution method. So either one of those videos. If you have not, I recommend you watch either both of them or at least one of them. Okay, so this video is gonna be talking about knowing which method to use and which is the right method to use for which question. So say you just watched the two videos or you even looked at the length of the videos and you're like, oh my goodness, the video length is very long or the steps are very overwhelming and there's so many things to remember. Can I just focus on one method and one method only? Well, to answer that is, well, you can, but you have to understand that each method has its own pros and cons. So the substitution method, for example, the good thing about this thing is there are some cases where it is much faster by using only one coefficient or rearranging it. But the downside is if you have questions where all your unknowns have coefficients, you're gonna end up with either having x being equivalent to having a fraction, and just by having this, you're just gonna have a lot of headache when it comes to substitution. So it's best if you actually understand both methods. However, again, like we do recognize that substitution is much safer and also a lot faster compared to elimination, because there are times where you have to figure out whether you're adding or subtracting when it comes to eliminating one of the unknowns in elimination method, and also the fact that you risk making mistakes when it comes to elimination. You have positives and negatives and you're minusing the entire equations. So I would say knowing both methods help, and knowing the advantage of both methods and disadvantage of both methods actually really helps you to understand the topic. So that's why you really have to practice either at least one method first, so that you know what's the downside of it, which motivates you to at least go for the other method. And from my experience, I realized that most students actually prefer elimination method. So I usually just tell them, well, it's up to you, but there are cases where using substitution is a lot faster. In this case, where I will show you. So again, it's really depending on the situation and depends on how much you want to cram your brains in to kind of figure out which method that you want to use. But let me just show you what I mean by where do you know which method to use. So in cases like this, when I see y being alone, I can immediately rearrange from 2, okay, rearrange my second equation so that y equals to 3 minus 3x. It's very fast, you know. And then once I have rearranged that, then I can sub 3 into 1. So then 2x minus 3y, 3 minus 3x equals to 13. So 2x minus 9 plus 9, careful of the negatives, x equals to 13. Then 11x equals to 13 plus 9, which is 11x equals to 22. X equals to 22 over 11 equals to 2. So x is 2, so sub x equals to 2 back into 3, which is y equals to 3 minus 3 bracket 2, 3 minus 6. Then y is now equals to negative 3. So therefore, x equals to negative 2, y equals to negative 3. So in this case here, it's much more straightforward. In this, like I can just substitute in, and I don't need to think about whether or not I should eliminate. And the thing about elimination method is you got to make sure that they are the same coefficient, 3y and 3y. And in this case here, they don't give you any similar coefficients. You have to multiply the equations in order to get the same number, and after you multiply, you have to subtract them. And some students find that process a lot slower, but in this case, when I substitute, I can just move things around, move it as a subject, and then I can get my answer. So in this case, I would say I would use substitution because y does not have a coefficient, and it's easy to make it as the subject. But I have to recognize that when you can't do that, in this case here, you see there's no coefficients here. So substituting will just make you more confused. And because of that, these kind of questions, it's much better to use elimination method, where you multiply the one of the unknowns to have the same coefficient. In this case, I'll choose x. And the reason why I choose x is because here I can see 2 times 5 equals to 10, and then 5 times 2 equals to 10x. But here I have to do 5 times 4, and then 4 times 5 here is 20y, and then you're just dealing with bigger numbers. So I want to choose the smallest numbers possible, and again, to make my life easier. So in this case, 1 multiplied by 2, okay, 1 multiplied by 2, I will get 10x plus 8y equals to 46. And then that is my third equation. Then 2 multiplied by 5, okay, so then 10x plus 25y equals to negative 5. That's my fourth equation. All right. Then after that, they are in their alignment. They are aligned with each other. So I can just minus off 3 minus 4. Okay. So 10x will be eliminated, and then 8y minus 25y equals to 46 minus 5. All right. And then this again, just solving an equation regularly. So this is negative 17y equals to, plus this is 51. And so y equals to 51 over negative 17, y equals to negative 3. Okay, so then we substitute y equals to negative 3 back into either one of these equations. In this case, I'll choose 2 because it's a smaller number. 2x plus 5 bracket negative 3 equals to negative 1. 2x equals to, this is negative 15. So negative 15, I'm moving it over, so it will be plus 15. 2x equals to 14 over 2, x equals to 7. So therefore, x equals to 7, y equals to negative 3. So it is like normal solving. You could have skipped all that. But the idea is, in this case, it's better to use elimination because of the different coefficients. And then if you substitute in this case, you will have fractions, and then it's going to make your life harder. Will you use elimination for this question, or will you use substitution? And it's up to you. You know, some people prefer elimination, some people prefer substitution, but knowing both methods help you solve questions based on it, and sometimes knowing which one is the fastest method helps. So in this case here, I would actually substitute, because from my first equation, x equals to 2y. And this is my third equation. And it's so much faster. And then I sub 3 into 2, which is 2x. Instead of writing 2x, it is now 2 bracket 2y plus 6y equals to 15. Then 4y plus 6y equals to 15. 10y equals to 15. Y equals to 15 over 10, which is 1.5. Then I will sub y equals to 1.5 into 3. Then x equals to 2 bracket 1.5 equals to 3. Therefore, x equals to 3, y equals to 1.5. It's so much faster and so much less work as well. So again, which method should you use? It depends on the question. So just to summarize, for substitution method, it's best to use it when you see an unknown without a coefficient. When you see an unknown without a coefficient, you can immediately substitute by rearranging the equation that has the unknown without a coefficient. For elimination method, it's best to use when you have different coefficients. So again, in summary, when you see a unknown without coefficient, use substitution. When you see different coefficients with different unknowns with different coefficients, that's when you should use elimination. And again, practice makes perfect. One more final thing is, how do you know if your answer is correct? How can you check if your answer is correct? So let's say this is x equals to 2 and then y equals to negative 3. The way you can check is you substitute both answers back into your original equations and check if their statements are true. So in this case here, x equals to 2, y equals to negative 3. So you just substitute x equals to 2 in this case, and then y equals to 3, or negative 3 rather, negative 3, and it's supposed to be equals to 13. So in this case, 4 plus 3 times 9, 9 equals to 13. So this is true, so the first equation is correct. Then you substitute for the second equation, x is still 2, y is negative 3, so minus 3. And it should give us 6 minus 3, which is equals to 3, which is correct as well. Now, how do you know if your answer is wrong? Let's just say this is 1. So let's just substitute it back into 1. So x is equals to 1. So bracket 1 minus 3, and 3, 2 plus 9 equals to 11. So because it's equal to 11 and not equals to 13, I know that x cannot be 1. So that's how to check if my answer is correct. So if you get weird like numbers like 1.5 and you're not sure if your answer is correct, what you can do is you can substitute it back into its original equation and see if it's true. So 3, back from equation 1, 3 minus 2, 1.5 equals to 3 minus 3, which is 0. This is correct because the first equation says so. And 2x, which is 2 bracket 3, plus 6y, 6 bracket 1.5. Okay, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 1.5 is 9. 6 plus 9 equals to 15, which is also correct. So just a tip on how to check whether your answers are correct. Again, you substitute back in the original equation. So I hope this video helps, and hopefully you can continue to practice and get better so that you know which method to use for solving simultaneous equations.